Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Michelle Poston. I'm Ayana's cousin, and I know she wants to be called Dr. Ayana Hardaway, but we all affectionately know her as Yanni. Yes, her auntie slash mommy says Yanni Poo, and that's the other one. So I'm thankful to have all of you here, and I'm also overwhelmed with joy myself to be here. I want to read her autobiography. I know many of us know her to be the fun, loving, supportive friend that she is, right? But she has this other side of her, and this side is often, I don't want to say not highlighted, but this is the side that I would love, as many of us are here to do today, to highlight and bring attention to. She's an author, she's a mom, she's a daughter, a niece, a friend, a cousin, and she's someone that we all truly, truly love. Now, I know many of you have programs and you do not have the autobiography handy, and I meant to do that, I meant to throw that. But I'm going to read a few things that I want all of us to know. How many of you are familiar with the word Sankofa? You are now. Sankofa. In order to move forward, you have to know where you come from. And that's my other question. How many of you know where you come from? Are you on that journey to finding out? Well, you're in the right place, because Dr. Ayana Hardaway will bring us some more insight on that. And so before I invite her husband and her two beautiful children up, I want you all to know that she is the visionary behind Wildflowers and Company, a transformative multimedia publishing company amplifying marginalized voices through storytelling, creative arts, community partnerships, and I know some of you here are community partners, and education. And so as an Endarkened restorative practitioner, educational storyteller, Ayana is dedicated to uplifting communities and her village, and many of you are in her village. As a founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Wildflowers Co, Ayana uses her signature writing method, Sankofa, a sacred West African practice to help individuals heal. Writing is a healing method that many of us, if you have journals, you remember back in the day, you would write in your journal, you may visit it and say, oh my gosh, was I really going through this? And it's just a wonderful way to be able to visit some of your own storytelling. But rooted in Black feminism and restorative justice, her work combines that art of telling stories. And so I want to talk about her research. You know, Ayana's research centers on bridging theory with practice through, a number of different methods with a focus on the experiences of minority communities. And so particularly Black women and girls. I know we have a lot of men here, but you guys are part of this journey too. And so please know that. So this work also examines the structural and systemic barriers that shape the life trajectories of marginalized groups. Her groundbreaking book, From Crack Mother to Wildflower, Writing to Transgress. How many of you have the book so far? How many of you started it? Okay, so her groundbreaking book is just a critical autobiography that explores the pivotal role of Black women-centered networks during the crack era. Now, some of us may have friends, or some of us may have family members who were victims or just a part of that crack epidemic, right? And so one thing I love is that she actually deconstructs the bad crack mother and crack baby myths. She also challenges dominant narratives that have historically stigmatized Black women and their children. And so through the Sankofa Writing Method, she engages in narrative reconstruction, demonstrating how writing and storytelling can truly be sacred for remembering, recovering, and of course, moving forward. And so I love to invite her right hand and her two beautiful children to the stage to give us more about Dr. Ayana Hardaway.
Good evening, family. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
You good? All right. Before I get into my introduction, just one quick thing. I need everyone in here to really embrace this moment and think about the people in your lives that can help this movement move forward, right? Yes, we're here to celebrate, we're here to have a good time, but this is also a moment where we got to be about our business, right? This is time to handle business too. So if you know policymakers, if you know business people, if you know people who own, different companies, it's time to start thinking about those people and how they can help influence and expand this movement, because what Dr. Yanni has is a beautiful thing and it's a powerful thing. So just enjoy this time together, but also we got to be about our business, especially the way that this country is moving. We got to be on it. So it is up to all of us to start spreading that word and help push this movement along. All right? So let's get down to business. So, like I said, we're not here just to celebrate Yanni, Dr. Ayana T. Hardaway. We're here to embrace a moment and a movement, right? This movement that's going to help people heal from their traumas, right? And also tell their truths, right? So, on top of celebrating Dr. Ayana T. Hardaway, we're here for that, and we're here to celebrate that moment and embrace that moment. I was telling some of our cousins yesterday that this is the first step of a marathon, right? We got a long fight ahead of us. We got a lot to accomplish together, but this is step one of what we're going to do together to make change, right? So for those who don't know me, I am Nate Hardaway. I am the husband of Ayana Hardaway. I am her certified cheerleader and best friend.
Yes. Right.
Beside me, we have Jordan. Wait, she's really close. And we have Ava. You want to wave?
Ava.
All right. So before our superstar comes out, I just want to say one quick thing. Well, I want to think about a word that comes to mind when I think about Yanni. I'm gonna call you Yanni. I can't do that whole doc. I'm calling you Yanni. All right. So, and that word is resilient. For those who don't know, on top of creating a transformative book and writing a transformative book, she's also worked full-time for Stanford, right? And on top of writing a book, working for Stanford, she also created her own company, founder, CEO of an amazing and progressive company, right? On top of being an author, right, working for Stanford, creating a company, she also worked part-time for The Ohio State University with Lori Patton Davis.
Okay.
On top of all that, right, she is an amazing mother. Homework, swim class, gymnastics, music class, all of it, right? So, and on top of that, she's an amazing wife, and as you all know, she is an amazing friend. Yeah. So, resilient doesn't really describe you, it's just amazing, to be honest. Like, you're amazing, and we are in awe of everything that you've done so far and what you're going to do. So with that being said, I want to introduce the author of From Crack Mother to Wildflower, writing to Transgress, the Sankofa Writing Method, and founder and CEO of Wildflowers Co, Dr. Ayana T. Hardaway.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Jordan and Ava. I am so excited about this moment. Thank you. One of the things that I think I'll, start with is the story, right? And so, at the heart of the creation of Wildflowers Co is this story, and we all have a story. So Wildflowers Co was conceptualized while I was writing this book about my family. And my family is sitting in the front row. And it's really, really, really special because so many of us have different trajectories, but centering my story was a big part of this book. And as I was writing the book and amplifying my mother and writing about her in a way that centers her truth, so many memories came to mind about our family and just the resilience of family and the Black family structure, and highlighting a moment in time that we think about it as history, but one of the questions that I ask is, is that epidemic, did it ever end or did it manifest into something else? And so as I was writing this book, I was thinking about what my mother could say if she was still here. All of the stories that go untold, all of the stories that we don't share, all of the emotions that we just leave, we suppress them. Where could we go if we wanted to tell those stories? And so Wildflowers Co was designed with that in mind. So I am so excited to be here to stand before you today. I'm going to officially welcome you to this event, but before I do that, I want to thank the Tyler family. Thank you so much for everything. I'm not going to cry. And that's okay. I want to thank the Hardaway family. Uncle Brian, where are you? He's taking pictures. So I want to thank Uncle Brian and Joshua's Catering and for booking this amazing venue. So many of us did not even know that the Deacon existed in this space, and so thank you so much for putting this together for us and giving us a space to convene. So Wildflowers Co, we are a restorative organization, and the idea of it is that we are healing trauma within and across communities. Healing trauma, what does that mean? So we're doing this through creative expression. I did this through writing my book. One of the things that we're going to be doing through our partnerships is providing book coaching opportunities, and so this is where the transformation happens. I had no intentions on being a CEO in January 2024. So all of you who know me, you're on this journey with me and you're watching it unfold, and you're so excited to celebrate with me, and I'm excited to share with you and to encourage you to tell your own story, to do exactly what I just did, if that's something that resonates with you. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is providing book coaching opportunities. We're going to be providing publications so that we can amplify stories that are typically untold. So that is the goal of our organization. In addition to that, we're doing this through strategic partnerships, and we have had the pleasure to partner with some amazing organizations, and we'll present them shortly. But the call to action is really thinking about how can we engage in trauma healing in a restorative way? How can we engage in trauma healing so that we're actually providing a transformation in people's lives and tapping into the most vulnerable populations? And so bringing this book back home to Philadelphia was really, really important because I believe that we have an opportunity to do some really, really incredible work. So the Sankofa Writing Methodology, again, it is based in West African traditions. It takes into account this idea of remembering, recovering, and moving forward. And so I'll talk a little bit about the Sankofa Writing Method in the second half, but Wildflowers Co, again, we are launching and we are going to be providing publication opportunities through different modes creatively. And so we have some creative projects that we have coming up. Next, I would like to introduce our Chief Creative Officer, who is my cousin, Zania Gray. Please give her a round of applause. So, you know, we have so many ideas about, you know, the work that we're doing, but all of this is really historicizing moments in time and historicizing stories. And so I created a book and was able to create a company because the goal is really about the story. The goal is about what experience do you have, you know, what is something that you've experienced that is required for someone else's healing? And so that's the goal of our work. But creatively, we are thinking about just the opportunities in terms of creative expression, documentaries, docuseries. There's so many projects coming up, so stay tuned, and you know, we'll have more information that we'll be able to provide shortly.
I'm really shy for some reason, I don't know. But I just want to say I'm very proud of you, Ayana. Okay, so I'm not going to cry either. Maybe I will. I'm very proud of you. I am Ayana's older cousin, but she has been like a big sister to me for so very long. And through this journey, reading the book and talking to her almost every day, about the Sankofa Writing Method and how to implement that in my own life, especially if I don't really have an ancestor that I need to set free, or to retell the story. Just working through all of that with her has helped me grow so much in the last several months, and I am so proud of you, and I thank you very much for everything that you've done, and I am proud of everything that's going to come. So I just, you know, again, just say stay tuned for what's coming. We're going to bring this story to life. And again, just document other stories of individuals who have experienced similar situations. So,
Absolutely.
thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
For your support.
Absolutely. You know, so much of our work is community-centered, right? And so we have educational leaders in the space. We have community organizers in the space. And so as we think about restoration and transformation and bridging the divide, so as a researcher, my goal is always to bridge theory with practice in a way that is tangible. And so what we are interested in doing is partnering with you and your communities that you work with to bring this methodology into the community so that we can help and provide tools, and we can provide coaching, and we can amplify people and support people who want to share their stories so that they can tell it and have a platform for them to tell it so that they can create generational wealth for themselves. And so when we're thinking about youth, we're thinking about education, we're thinking about families. How do we tap into these pockets? How do we tap into community? How do we tap into educational spaces? How do we bridge theory and research in tangible and practical ways? And so self-publishing, there's power in that, there's agency in that. And I could have published this book through a publishing company, but you know, the goal is to provide the economic opportunity for those in our families and for ourselves. And so that is the goal of Wildflowers Co. So for the community partners who are in the space, for organizers, for educational leaders, thank you so much for being here. And our call to action is for you to help us grow our network and to stay in touch with us so that we can bridge the gap and bridge theory and practice in a way that we can impact some actual change. And so with that being said, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Francine Hardaway and Derek Cheeks of the Philadelphia Community Youth Court. These are our inaugural partners. When I wrote this book, my mother-in-law told me that this, you know, there was a need for this within the Philadelphia Community Youth Court, and so we are so excited. We had our first event yesterday at the Braid Mill, and it was incredible just engaging with the youth and engaging with the Sankofa Writing Method and talking about trauma and talking about healing, because the truth is, a lot of what we experienced in the 80s and 90s, it's intergenerational, right? And so our youth are still experiencing this. And so the conversation is very relevant. And so how do we talk about it? And so without further ado, I would love to invite the Philadelphia Community Youth Court forward. Please give a round of applause. And so we would like to present to you an award because, again, starting this work and bridging this and bridging theory and practice in a way where we are bridging the gap and bringing about change So I want to thank you, and thank you so much for allowing us to partner with you and having conversations with the youth and being able to engage, because as we know, trauma is something that we all have, but there's usually no methodology, there's no solution. And so we just want to present this award to you. And we are so grateful for our partnership.
Anybody who knows me knows that I have prepared some remarks. So I am Francine Hardaway, the CEO and founder of the Philadelphia Community Youth Court. And this is Derek Cheeks. He is my CAO. And you may notice that he's very young. He's 24 years young. He started with me in the 6th grade and has graduated 2 degrees.
Yes, 2 degrees hotter.
Hotter, yes. Yes. So we are truly honored to be selected as inaugural partners of Wildflowers Co. I am grateful for the Sankofa Writing Method and excited about the collective work that we are doing with Wildflowers Co. I'm even more excited about the impact it will have on people who engage in it, especially for the marginalized communities that feed the school-to-prison pipeline and then fill our jails. For the impoverished and those struggling with mental health, and for those experiencing generational curses that bind our mind and our potential. They all require healing. We are big business for those conglomerates that benefit from our traumas. Here is a golden opportunity for us to reclaim our city, our communities, our villages, and families, and even ourselves, using this methodology that is built on practices handed down by our ancestors. The Philadelphia Community Youth Court is affectionately known as PCYC and the Courts of Second Chances. We are a restorative and transformative court facilitated by youth, for youth, by youth, for youth. Okay? We are partnered and in collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, the Philadelphia Police Department's Diversion Unit, the Philadelphia School District Office of School Safety, and the communities of the City of Philadelphia. Our mission is to eradicate the school-to-prison pipeline. PCYC currently operates 8 courts within the City of Philadelphia. 2 additional courts will be opened in June of 2025. We have a track record of reducing suspensions and expulsions by at least 68%, while maintaining a low recidivism rate in the 90th percentile. It has been our experience that trauma is the underlying cause of maladjusted behaviors of our youth. Our plan is to utilize the Sankofa Writing Method to teach youth and their families the tools to heal their traumas in our workshop and mediation circles. We anticipate that this tool will be a game changer in assisting us with eradicating the school-to-prison pipeline, and we look forward to reporting the outcomes. Everyone experiences trauma at some point in their lives. We don't get over trauma or move on from trauma. We are often forced to make space for trauma. We carry it, we learn to live with it, and sometimes we thrive despite it. While your healing journey is your own, you heal not to handle trauma. You heal so that you can handle and experience joy. I need everybody in the room under the sound of my voice to close your eyes for 1 second. Just close your eyes for 1 second. Imagine for one moment, what would it look and feel like if you had the tools to heal the trauma that has affected you and your family. Sit with that for a second. Do you feel the power? Y'all don't hear me. Do you feel the power?
Yes.
Yes. Who are we waiting for? The power lies in us, in each and every one of us. This tool, groundbreaking. Groundbreaking. I'm going to close with words from our beloved author, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Wildflowers Co. Go free, Wildflowers. Thank you.
So much, and I'm so glad that we had that mindfulness moment.
Yeah.
Because so much of the work and the methodology is this empowering ourselves to reimagine what it would look like in recreating counter-futures for ourselves, recreating counter-futures for our ancestors. So the Sankofa Writing Method is a trauma-informed tool, but it allows us to recover ancestral narratives, okay? And so this, for me, is really, really important because some of us are holding on to things that do not belong to us. We're holding on to stories that no longer belong to us. We're holding on to experiences that no longer belong to us. And because we're holding on to them, other people cannot heal. And so the Sankofa Writing methodology is conceptualized in 3 phases: remember, recover, and move forward. But the whole idea of it is to excavate and do our work so that we can recreate these moments through storytelling. And so I talk about Afrofuturism. This is speculative, and it's really just reimagining Black futures progressively, reimagining Black futures in a way that does not center the white gaze, in a way that empowers us to think about our liberation and our freedom. And so I'm really, really excited to bring this forward and to engage with our partners in this work. So thank you again to the Philadelphia Community Youth Court for partnering with us. And in addition to the Philadelphia Community Youth Court, you know, my family, I come from a family who is heavily involved within the criminal justice system, within criminal justice reform. My aunts worked in the probation department for many years, and so we have existing relationships that spans generations. And our second partner is the United States District of Pennsylvania Supervision to Aid Reentry Program. And so we are partnering with the U.S. Department of Probation. Our partner has not arrived yet, but that's okay. We will present that award when he shows up. There's traffic and there's delays. But we had an opportunity to observe at the reentry court last month, and it was incredible. So we are going to be working with men, and so we're going to be bringing forward this methodology and inspiring them to tell their stories, because we know there's a subculture. We know that there is a muting that happens, and so our goal is to reach the bottom. Our goal is to bring this work back home. Our goal is to preserve our families and preserve our bloodlines. And so we are doing that in partnership with our reentry program, where we're going to be providing creative opportunities, book coaching, and we're going to be inspiring people to create generational wealth. And so I'm really, really excited about this partnership. So I will bring Zania forth because she is a previous federal U.S. probation officer, and she can speak a little bit more about the program and Fred's answer.
Yes, so I'm just going to say a few words. You did a wonderful job of describing what the partnership would look like. But when Yanni told me about the book and what the book was all about, and I thought, oh my God, this is really a powerful tool, and it will help so many individuals who have been incarcerated and who have gone through the criminal justice system. Because what I found as an investigator, meeting with men and women in the prison system, when I was asking them to tell their story, they were really holding on to so much that they really blamed on themselves. And so what they didn't understand was, and really started with the rap sheet, because I would pull out the rap sheet and say, you've been arrested 20 times. Can you explain to me what was going on here, here, and here? And with every arrest, there was a story, right? And so what I also found was that there was some shame, there was some guilt, there was also some protection, you know, like I don't want to really, my mom was a good mom, but yeah, I understand that, and I'm not blaming her, there's no judgment here, but I can't help you if you don't tell me what happened to you. And so with this Sankofa Writing Method, I thought, what a wonderful way for people, men and women, who experience the kind of hurt and trauma that they've gone through that led them to the criminal justice system, because I really do believe that those situations, those experiences are what led them to live the lives they led and to make the decisions they made. And so with this writing method and with being able to tell their truth and tell their story and really get into the bottom, to the root cause of what happened to them, that they would be set free. And that their lives would change forever and they would make different decisions. And so Ayana has been working very closely with the United States District Court in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania to start. But I really do believe that this program is going to spread so fast and it's going to be so successful that other district courts across the country will implement the same method to set their individuals free as well. Okay? And in the long run, right, the crime rates across the nation will be reduced because we will be able to touch people who have been traumatized and holding on to those stories, blaming themselves for things that they had no responsibility for. So Ayana, I really do believe that this is groundbreaking work, and you're gonna save generations of people and generations, families along the way. So that's what's happening with the United States District Court in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. It will be implementing the Sankofa Writing Method, helping men and women to set themselves free.
Yes. Yes, this is the collective work that we are going to be doing. And my story is just one story. So what impact does your story have on someone else? I wrote this book in 3 months. And I felt compelled to start a company. My husband has been telling me, you need to run, you need to be a business owner, you need to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, who are you talking about? I'm a researcher, I'm behind the scenes. And so I'm stepping into these shoes and I welcome it full force. I am a worker, and so I'm really, really excited to engage strategically. We are starting out exactly where we need to be, and I am so excited. And so, again, for those in the space, if you are engaged with vulnerable populations, this is the work that we're doing, and I invite you to join us. And so the call to action, again, is to build community with us, is to stay in touch with us. Before you leave, please purchase a book, but please leave your information at the check-in table. We are collecting your names. If you have individuals that you would like to share, companies you would like to share, please share them with us. Once we roll out, starting our services, rolling out at the top of the year, we'll be providing more information about our services, and we want to collaborate with you so that we can do the necessary work of healing and restoring our families. Ashe? Ashe. All right. All right. So we are going to transition into the next portion of the program. When Brother Fred Crawford arrives, we will introduce him to you all and present him with his award formally. But next, I will invite back up my cousin, journalist and corporate communications expert. We are going to transition into the fireside chat so that we can discuss the book.
Since everyone is speaking without a mic, I will leave the mic down for a second. I love the fact that your mom in love, your mother in love, shared that beautiful experience. I'm sure all of you, when you closed your eyes, you did feel that power. But I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, because the goal that I want all of you to walk away with knowing this, that your story, your own individual story, is someone's survival guide, right? Just think about that for a second. Your story is actually someone's survival guide, and that means you're all here for a reason. And so if you did not know that you're here for a reason, place your hand, whichever hand it is, and put it right here on your hearts. The fact that you can feel a heartbeat, that is why you are here for a reason. So always know that. Every morning you wake up, there's power in the tongue. Zania mentioned that, it's her belief. No, we are going to confess. We are going to say, this company will take off. There is power in the tongue. And with that said, I love from the beginning, from the moment that I opened your book, Yanni, because I'm like, I can't say, I want to say Dr. Yanni Hart, but we're all family here, right? And so, from the moment I opened the book, I felt like I was walking on that journey with you. You ever feel that when you're reading a story, that you're in the story? And so, you have this quote. It says, how simple a thing it seems to me that to know ourselves as we are, we must know our mother's name. That's by Alice Walker. It was COVID. We're all isolated. We're all thinking all types of things, right? But you said, it was during that pandemic when your daughter says, Mommy, who's your mommy? Yeah, take me through that.
So this work and this project, it was triggered by the question of my daughter asking who her grandmother was, who her maternal grandmother was. Writing about my mother was something I've always wanted to do, and I would tell people in my family, I want to write about my mother, but I just didn't know how. And it is precisely what Zania discussed. There is this protection factor, right? And we understand our ancestral connections. We are very cautious about how we speak about our ancestors, and we don't want to reproduce violence on them. And mind your business. Like we are culturally, spilling the family tea is not something that we do culturally. But when we think about our trauma, what is really, really important for us to understand is that when we don't release it, it manifests itself into something else. It is not healthy for us. And so I knew that I needed to share the story. I knew that I had work to do. And it was Jordan. It was my daughter who showed me. She was a reflection for me, and it was urgent for me to do my work. And so when I say that I wrote this book in 3 months, it was urgent for me, but this conversation happened 4 months ago. And so this work has been a journey. It took me 3 to 4 years. I was 37 when I finally said, I need a therapist. I need to speak with someone about my trauma. And I was very intentional about who I selected. My challenge was really understanding my mother's addiction, understanding the chronic illness, understanding the medical implications, and understanding neurology. And so in chapter 5, I write about my black woman psychologist that I had. She specialized in chronic illnesses, and so she was able to really break down what was happening to my mother's brain. And so I thought about my mother's addiction in a lens that I had never thought, I didn't have the information. So for me, it was a knowledge gap. And so once you center addiction as a chronic and as a medical issue, my mother was suffering from brain damage. And so all of the behavior, these are symptoms of something else. And when you understand that and when you see that, you can't unsee it. And so I was doing this work for years, and I was trying to figure out a way to bring this information, to provide this information in a way that could inspire other people. And so through the writing method, it was not about me and our story, because this was the foundation. It was about what other people could benefit, how other people could benefit from having the information. And so Jordan, she's in the kids' room, I think. But Jordan sparked the light in me. She forced me to see my truth.
It's all right.
Sorry, babe.
It is okay.
Yeah.
Because trauma work is not cute. I went through a lot of boxes of Kleenex doing this work, okay? I'm telling you, we need to get some stock in Kleenex. But this work is not cute. And that's the point. Because you have to release it, because it does not belong to us. So that is the origin story of how this journey started. It was my daughter. And I think it's really, really incredible, because through the writing method, what I did and what I was intentional about doing is creating space on a page with my mother, who died a few years before my daughter was born, before my children was born, but recreating moments so that they could have a conversation. As I was writing, I thought, what would my mother say to my children? And so this is the kind of speculative writing that we're doing in the method. This is how we're using Afrofuturism, or thinking about progressive Black futures in a way that's healing and provides restoration for ourselves. So,
You talked about suppressing childhood trauma.
yes.
For the people in this room who may be suppressing any kind of trauma, what would you say is the first step?
The first step is understanding that it is yours and it does not belong to anyone else. You know, you don't need permission to do your work. You don't need permission to heal yourself. This work, I wrote a book about it. I published all my tea. I spilled all my tea because that's me. But doing this work is introspective. It's work that internally we need to do so that we can do the necessary part, so that we can heal ourselves. It's urgent for us to do our work. And particularly with this moment in time, Black women who suffered from their addiction at the height of the crack cocaine epidemic were the most degraded populations, the most degraded populations within modern American history, and received the least amount of support. And so when we think about the stigmas around Black women, so this is, I'm a Black feminist scholar, so this is my area. So this is what I write in, and I've published for years about Black women's narratives and the systemic, our intersectional locations and our oppression. But when you look at this moment, and you look at the racist media hysteria of the 80s and the 90s, y'all, there was a political agenda, and we do not talk about it. It is insane. When we think about the crack baby myth, so those of us who were born in the 80s, where the 80s babies at? Where we at? All right, cause to the people. Hey, snap, snap. Those of us who were born with this stigma, we were socialized and we had to go through our educational pursuits with this stigma. There was a stigma that I experienced by being raised by another mother. There's a stigma being raised when you have a mother or a parent who's not there. And so we navigated it and we don't talk about it. You know, we just, I'm okay. You know, I spent much of my life, like, you know, what happened to my mother is what happened to my mother. It doesn't bother me, but it did. And so when we think about our trauma, and we all know what our traumas are, it's right there at the surface and we don't talk about it. There's a line in my book when I say, you know, I pretended to act like I didn't know what my trauma was. You know, like there's this like dissonance that we have internally about talking about things out loud. But I think what's really, really important about this is understanding that our story fits within a historical narrative, it fits within a sociological narrative, it fits within a cultural narrative, and intergenerationally, I'm so excited about the fact that it was my daughter who inspired me to write this book, because now she has a record, she has truth. And so it was urgent for me to get to my mother's truth so that my daughters could have their history, but it was important for me so that I could rekindle relationships with my uncles and my aunts, and to restore bloodlines because they lived it. And so when I think about, you know, reading this story, I told it from the perspective of Black girlhood through my lens in the 90s, but it's also, what was it like for my aunt and uncles to lose a sister? What was it like for them to have to take in these children? What was it like for my grandmother and my grandfather to lose a daughter? What was it like for them? So these are the questions, and this is the reason why we need to do our work, because when we can create space and shake off this victimhood, I talk about this unraveling of the roots, because that's exactly what it is. You know, when we shake off our victimhood and understand that it is our ancestors who are actually the victims, once we center them in their rightful location, you know, there is this eloquent rage. Brittany Cooper, who's a researcher, talks about, you know, us transforming our rage into something that's powerful. And so writing this methodology was, for me, how can I develop curriculum as an educator and as a researcher that can allow people to see themselves through my experience, but also to think about their own story, their own the conversations they need to have with their loved ones, their children, and making sure that this is an intergenerational conversation, because this is where the work starts, and on the other side of it is healing, and it is urgent. It is urgent for us to do this work. Nate talked about the political context. We operate in isolation. We're very siloed in our families, and my goal is to completely shift the narrative about how we feel about these moments that we feel so much shame about. We need to empower ourselves to have conversations and amplify the beauty, because we are resilient, and my family is incredible. And so the Tyler family is here, and I just really, really want to shed some light on them, because I talk about trauma, my trauma response as being a high achiever. So when we think about what's projected of those who might have a parent who is suffering from addiction, we're thinking about school to prison pipeline. Some of us have an opposite reaction, where we just keep going because we don't have an outlet. This is me, okay? And so thinking about trauma and thinking about what that looks like, it looks very different. Thinking about the family divide, restoring our bloodlines is why this work is so important. And so honoring that and not being afraid and not feeling shame about that is what this work is about.
Transforming, you said that rage, right?
Yes.
That means standing in your truth.
Yes.
What was the most difficult chapter for you to write?
So the most difficult chapter to write was probably chapter 1, and it's my favorite chapter. So it's called Theory is Healing Space. So bell hooks, I'm inspired by a lot of Black women writers, and so a lot of this is thinking about the lessons and thinking about our foremothers, thinking about our grandmothers. Writing my mother's future was the initial idea. I wanted to create space so that I can center her truth, but I needed to theoretically map out what that looks like. And so as a scholar, I did a lot of research on this era, and that was very triggering for me. When you live an experience that you don't talk about and then you read about it, I found a few things. Not only is this era so significantly understudied, it's deplorable. And so I don't know if there are any academics in this space, but one of my call to actions is that those of us who were born during this era, particularly those who are scholars, we have work to do, because we have a lot of reclaiming of our histories in order to center our actual experiences and to talk about the oppression that we endured, because there is a structural there's a structural agenda that's happening outside of what we experienced in our communities, and that is not discussed. When you think about the dominant narratives of Black women, particularly in this era, there's a line that I talk about, Felicia. Everybody knows Felicia from Friday, right? And bye, Felicia, right? It's a popular colloquialism, but what happened to Felicia? Why don't we talk about what happened to this woman? When we think about modern day depictions of women who are suffering from their addiction, they are painted as these monsters. And so a lot of the work and the theorizing was really amplifying Black women's intersectional locations. And so it was a difficult chapter, but it was necessary, because we're not just rewriting our futures, we're actually talking about education, and we're talking about preserving our history and the truth. And so the methodology my Sankofa Writing Method talks about destroying the myths and amplifying the margin and amplifying our truths, because we understand who we are, we know who we are, and I think it's really important for us to shift the lens so that we can begin to talk about those things. So chapter 1 was definitely the most challenging, but the most rewarding, because this is the work that's important so that we can change a narrative nationally about Black women, particularly during this time, but to revive them. And so there is a call for us to revive our mothers, to revive our fathers, and to get back to their truth. Who were they? Who were they? And so this is the goal of the work. This is the call to action, to tell our stories.
And it sounds like it's an each one teach one, right?
Yes.
How do you encourage people to do the research? how do you research your family? And it's not about just jumping online.
Listen, you know, one of the steps in the writing method is really about amplifying the truth. And what that step entails is going out and actually having conversations. Hard conversations. And so I was on the phone with my family. I was on the phone with my aunt, asking her questions because I listen differently now. And so asking her questions about my mother, you know, when they were growing up, asking my family questions about what happened to her, you know. And I spoke to her best friend, Miss Rashida, because we all know, our friends know us. Our family know us, but our friends know us. And so talking to my mother's best girlfriend, her best childhood friend, was the inspiration for the book cover, because it was one of her favorite moments of my mother playing her drums in a snowstorm when they were kids. And so my mother was a musician. We have a family of musicians. But doing the work, it's not difficult. We just have to make the choice. And, you know, we think about our elders and our eldership. So those of us who have the privilege and the honor of being in company with their elders, you ask them questions and you document them. And asking those tough questions without guilt, asking those tough questions without judgment, asking those tough questions without fear, because fear is not real. And a lot of times we have these limited beliefs about who we are and about how conversations are going to turn out, but I'm telling you, have these conversations today. Because the healing needs to start so that we can move to the other side, and we need to be stronger together, especially now. But having those conversations, it's not difficult. We think they're difficult because we're not choosing to do it. You know, we just have to make the choice to do it.
On that note, I would love to invite questions from the audience. Feel free to, if you have any, you need a mic or take a stand.
Yes. And thank you. Originally, we were pulling this program together, and I was going to do like a reading from the book, but you know, this is a collective, and this is a dialogue. And so even, you know, I think us talking about our ancestors in a way, talking about our experiences in a way, it's important because when we think about Nomo, this is an African-centered word. This word represents the power of the spoken word. And so when we are in spaces collectively and we bring these stories to the forefront, we affirm one another and we heal. It is healing. And we create our reality with this in these spaces. And so we definitely want to welcome dialogue and questions about the book or even remarks about your own lived experiences.
I saw a hand go up. Yes.
Hello, I'm so excited to read the book. I do have a question. I have a highly educated family member who did the work and wrote a book about our family trauma in a very eloquent way. And instead of it being celebrated, it was rebuked. And even him himself was just almost seen as someone telling the business. How do you go through this in families that will not admit anything, will turn a blind eye no matter how hard you talk? Even the reality of today is not real in some dysfunctional families. How do you go about writing in this method when you have a family that will not admit the reality of the right now or the past?
Absolutely. So to that I would say the truth-telling piece comes within our own lived experiences, and we don't need permission to tell our stories. I understood that I needed permission to share certain truths about our family and making sure that it was accurate and true in the context of, with this particular epidemic, centering this story within its social, political context, right? And so oppression is what we're talking about. And so this story is situated within a larger story. And so for me, I did a lot of work leading up to this story. I've been talking about this writing methodology with my family. I've been talking about writing this book and having conversations since my grandmother transitioned, you know. And so these are conversations that I've been having actively with family members because I knew that it would be triggering for them, you know, and so kind of massaging those conversations, I would say, made the rollout easier. I'm looking at my elders, you know, but it is definitely a delicate, depending on the story and depending on what is being shared, you know, as a collective, and being able to share our truths in a way that centers what we live and is accurate. And a lot of times, sometimes, the story that's being told might not be for family, but it's for someone else. And so I wrote this book because I knew that it was a story that needed to be told. If no one reads it, you know, I felt like, well, at least my daughters will read it, you know, and so, but to that I would say, just being aware of the kind of conversations we're having, collectively understanding that, you know, we have support, and being really clear about the intention of the writing. I was very clear on the intention, and so with this being a trauma-informed book and a trauma-informed curriculum, you know, it's not easy to digest, but it is definitely necessary in the intention of the broader scale of the work that needs to be done. So to that, again, I just think it's, you know, we have our lived experiences, and we do not need permission to tell our stories, especially if the intention is that it's going to heal someone else. And, you know, that's not for everyone, and that's okay. But that would be my answer to that.
There's no one size fit all to healing.
That's right.
And taking people on a journey with you is often difficult. What do you say to people who are willing to take others on that journey? You took your aunt, right, my mother-in-law, and Uncle Kasi and family on this journey. But how do you engage them to bring them on? I know many tears you mentioned, but how do you get through that?
I mean, you know, don't let the tears fool you. My family knows. I'm not, I'm very, I think this advocacy and this generationally, our elders have done their job. And I'm talking to the 80s babies, I'm talking to the 90s babies. I think there's a generational baton pass that has to happen with the work that needs to be done. And I know a lot of times we look to our elders to take action, but it is our time to enact. It is our time, and so I'm having tough conversations without permission because we need to have them. And that's just how I roll. And so, you know, I think, but the intergenerational dialogue is important, so I think it is important for us to think about this idea of victimhood, and that was something that for me, as you know, someone who has such a supportive family and who does have elders, but to step into that to say, you know what, this is an area where we can actually help, you know, and bridging the divide between relationships and cousins. You know, we have lots of families, and everyone, you know, bridging those divides. You know, it doesn't have to require Big Mama to have a family function at the house and inviting everybody over. You know, we don't need permission to gather, and so it's just taking the initiation to do it, to start the conversation, and all you can do is try. You know, and so.
When did you, and just talk, I'm thinking, when did you identify as a wildflower? How did you, like, why a wildflower?
So the wildflower, thank you for asking that question. So wildflower, the idea of writing or rewriting my mother as a wildflower, we think about wildflowers, these are flowers that bloom and grow wherever they want. You know, they are cultivated wherever, and you know, there is no manipulation in terms of their growth. And so when I thought about rewriting my mother's life in a way where she was never subjected to oppression, where she was never altered or disrupted, what would her life have been like if she could live it out fully? And so thinking about this reimagining of her life with no limitations. So the wildflower as a metaphor is that concept. And so when we think about our own experiences, if we could rewrite them, what would our stories be? So the company was built off of that concept, but rewriting my mother's wildflower is just a symbol of rewriting her truth. rewriting her liberation in a way that allows me to think about her life and her future as if she was still here, and thinking about her as an ancestor and honoring her, and progressive futures that include us and include me in her story and include my children in those stories as well.
Yes.
Hi, so good to see you.
I'm all the way from New York, baby.
Oh my God.
So, in thinking about, and thinking about the reduction of this school-to-prison pipeline, right? And the onset of, I'm not saying that there's no issue with our brown male students, I'm not. But I am saying that our female students go through this whole phase of adultification and criminalization of our brown children, brown girls in school. Where do we start? Because if we want to reduce this pipeline, we want to hit them. Well, I have high school, and I have too many high schoolers that have what we call ankle jewelry in my building, right? Ankle jewelry. Yes. So there was some. Right. So where do we start in helping them move away from this, or reducing the impact of this on them?
Absolutely. So Black girls experience expulsion, this adultification. So this adultification, that simply means this erroneous idea of violence that Black girls experience within schools. Expulsion, suspensions for, in terms of their behavior, right, things. And so Black girls are typically viewed as women even though they're children, right? And so this is very, very important. And I think within schools, so Cynthia Dillard is another scholar. Venus Evans Winters is another Black feminist scholar. And we do a lot of research on this, but this darkened positionality as educators and how we show up in the classroom. We show up with our full selves, mind, body, and spirit. And so how we engage with our young girls and the sisterhood that we have to create in these spaces to protect them is so important. And so when we're thinking about these spaces and how violence is being reproduced within schools, it's calling it out and naming it as it happens. And I know this is a tax for those of us who are occupying educational spaces, and sometimes we're the only one, especially if we're the only Black administrator or the only Black teacher. But it is important for us to name it as it's happening and to call it out as it's happening. The work that has to happen, it's top down in terms of educational leadership, and we know that. And so shining a light on how Black girls, because of their intersectional location and adultification, and unpacking what that means, and bringing these conversations to the center in educational spaces is so important. And a lot of times we have to bridge the gap with education and community to have these conversations. But affirming our girls that they are children, affirming them that they are protected, affirming them that they are, that their lived experience is valid, affirming them and letting them know that our knowledge systems as Black people are valid. And so creating sisterhood is really, really important. But as educational leaders, we have to name it. We have to call it out when it happens. I do this all the time within educational spaces. I've always worked in white spaces. I've always been the youngest. I look 17. So I'm very aware of the stigmas that I experience as I navigate them, but I have to name it when I see it, and I know it comes at a risk for us, but this is the work that we have to do unabashedly. We have to do it as soon as it happens. But I think the sisterhood is really, really important, so that we can affirm our children. We know that they're not coming from, in terms of their home environment. We know that they're coming from broken families, and they're, so having that extra conversation, having conversations with whoever's at home is really, really important. So I would say that that's the starting point, is naming it and calling it out when it happens, but also creating a sense of community, but really calling on policymakers and educators within the building, so that there is a no tolerance policy for how we're looking at Black women and girls. But it's creating a narrative around it, because it almost happens I don't want to say subconsciously, but racism is like, we know when it happens, but it becomes such a norm to view certain behaviors as these deficient and morally, but we have to change the narrative by creating dialogue around it. Would anyone respond differently to that or contribute differently to that who works in educational spaces with Black women and girls?
Yes. I am an educator and I work in Delaware, so I do recognize that we need being one of 5 and one of 3 that are on academic. I am the only Black woman, and because of that, a lot of things are put in front of me and put on my plate for me to handle when it comes to our brown children. And sometimes it weighs a lot, and then my counterparts don't understand why I make the decisions that I make, because they don't understand the rational thinking that I'm using to make it. But sometimes it's a little hard to make those decisions when you don't have any resources or someone else to support you when you do.
Right.
So it is very liberating to do, but it's such a hard work to put in effect because I look at the end result.
Right.
So it's very hard being one of 5.
Absolutely. And we experience this because there's always a tax for us, the Black tax, when we show up in spaces and the levels of support. And so the burnout, we have to be cautious about that too, and realistic about that too. Sean Sherry.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I'm so proud of you. I'm very proud of you. So I just have a quick testimony if I can give it.
Absolutely.
I just feel like I might help somebody in their life. So.
Testing. I'll be.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I love you. First time I met you, you inspired me. The very first time you inspired me. There was something in you. There was something in you, and I drew from that, and I still draw from that. So first I want to say I had a praying grandmother. And I started reading this book, and I cried every page. Because I am your mother. I am your mother. My mom had my 3 children. And everything I read in here was me. In the 80s wiped me out. But God. So made me run around this church. But God, I've been clean and sober since 1995. Your mom may not be here now, but she is here. I'm your mom. Anything I can do for you, I will do it. I know you're in San Diego, I know how to get there too. But I have information for you, and I have told my story quite a few times. I go to rehabs for women's conventions. I do all that. I give back freely what God gave to me, and I have a couple tape stories that I will share with you. But my youngest daughter, I got 2 daughters. I lost my son. My youngest daughter is fine. My oldest daughter is fine. She was just glad to have her mom back. But the youngest one, she wrote a journal and it was feel, deal, and heal. And she got the phrase from me. But I'm going to ask her, I'm going to pray about it, I'm going to ask her to read this. Because she needs to identify with you, and she needs to move on. But I love you to the moon and back. There's nothing you can do about it. I am your mother.
And I think this is the point of the work, because I think it's important that for those of us who were born and have had parents, suffer from their addiction, it is a shifting of beliefs, and this is my primary audience. I think it's starting with us so that we can, begin to just put language around our experiences. And it does start with us, and that healing does start with us, because sometimes it's hard to see beyond our lived experiences. And so thank you so much for sharing that testimony, but this is the intergenerational work that we're talking about, because there are so many ruptures within our bloodlines and within our families. And so if this story, and if me telling my story over and over and over again can help one person and make them think about their experience differently, then I've succeeded. Yes. And so this is my goal. And it's that intergenerational dialogue is so important. Thank you so much for doing your work and sharing your story. There is no judgment. We have no authority to place judgment on anybody else. We have no authority we just have to create space for us to see our humanity. We have to create space for grace, and I write about that in the book. So thank you so much.
Well, Yanni,
yes, Ania.
my mom is watching, and she is so very proud of you, right? Having done all the work that you've done, and having identified your mother in a completely different way, seeing her differently, understanding her differently, listening differently, what would you say to her right now?
I would say to her that I'm ready. Let's go. I say this to her. We talking about ancestors. Can I go? Y'all know. I go. I speak to my mother daily, and so the ancestor altar that I had, my mother is with me, and so I'm not doing this work alone. I didn't write this book alone. I'm very clear on what it is I am supposed to be doing, and so being in California, knowing that she went to California, and there's no coincidence in that. And so when I was home in April, I got my mother's yearbook, class of 1972, from Gratz, right? It was like, we went to my grandmother's house, and my mother was just everywhere. Her yearbook was like sitting there, her picture was sitting here, and so I'm like collecting bits and pieces of her as I'm recovering her story. And in her yearbook, in the section when everyone talks about their future goals, she wrote, "Move to California." And so there's this serendipitous thing that's happening with how I ended up there, and why it was necessary for me to be there to do this work. Because I do not think that if I stayed in Philly, I would have been able to do this work at this level. So bringing all of this work and celebrating and starting this launch here back home was so important. But I would tell her that I'm ready, and I'm ready to recover her and her sisters. I'm ready to recover our stories, and I'm ready to help those like me heal from something that feels, it's invisible. I talk about trauma as this like invisible and this insidious cloak, this coat that we wear. And so for me, it's just about helping people have language to talk about it. So I would say I'm ready. I was born for this, so.
Oh, yes. Tremaine is my sister. I followed her everywhere she went. Every time she got into a situation, we were there. Me and my husband, by then, we were there. Different situations, taking her back home, taking her back to wherever, But she always said to me, T, you always got my back. And I always had her back. And I wanted to make sure that Yanni's children Ryan and Ayana know that we all have their back, okay? It doesn't matter what the situation is for right now, but Ayana, I'm so proud of you. And Tremaine's looking down on you right now, and she's saying, job well done.
And Grandma.
Yes, Hotel family. I too graduated in 1972. I went to John Bartram High School. We were rivals with your grass. However, I want to make some things real clear that I think gets foggy to our detriment. We are at war. This is a war for African minds and spirituality. That must always be our base. They affected the men, they affected the women. I apologize for the men not doing more. We should have been in a position to understand the war and our part. And at times we did. At times we went above and beyond. But the hurt that you bring when you talk about your mother is my sister, my girlfriend, my peers of 1972. And it hurts. So I know you're hurt. I commend you as well for all that you're doing for the female in this war. But do understand, we will not get out successfully or alive if we don't come together. There is no sexual separation in our revolution. There cannot be. There must not be. We must go together as a family. And the crack epidemic was purposefully done because of the 60s. When they saw the amount of unity, even with COINTELPRO, they still saw unity in African people, and consequently, you get cracked. The government did this. The FBI did this. Let us not misunderstand what was going on. And the purpose of crack in our community was to remove the woman from the base of the family. That's the only reason why. They or one of the primary reasons, not the only. But to remove the woman from the family, the African mother, which happened during the crack epidemic, was one of the prominent purposes. So for anyone who is putting the mother back in the family, raising their children, for bringing us together, I say ashe. In addition, we must raise our spirituality. Please understand, in the African spirituality, there was still reincarnation. Your daughter asking you about your mother might not have just been your daughter.
No, I say, come on, Dad. I already know that.
That may be your mother raising the intellect. There is an African possibility that you are raising your mother because of what happened to you. She knows there is safety near you. Absolutely. All of our children should understand that. And just thank you. As we say in African spirituality, we wish you all good things without number and blessings without end.
Absolutely. I say, thank you. Because listen, we have to remember who we are, mind, body, and spirit, and our African spirituality. It's so important for us. And so this connection to our ancestral wisdom and our intuitive knowledge, it's something that living in this world, we amplify these Eurocentric traditions, and we suppress what comes intuitive to us. And so when we think about our foremothers and our grandmothers and the traditions, we have to talk about them, we have to practice them and lead with that within how we navigate. So thank you, Dad, for bringing that up. That's Brother John's father. If everybody knows who John is, but yes, that is, yes, John Gross Sr. Yes, or John Gross the second, but yes. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And so much of this work is remembering our cultural and our intuitive wisdom and our spirituality at the forefront, because we cannot forget that, and we have to pass that down. And so thank you, Dad, for centering this part of the story.
So I love the energy in this room. There's a part in your book called Gratitude Meditation Exercises. All of us have something that we're grateful for, right? I need participation from everyone, whether you're shy or not. And then you're going to close out so she can mix and mingle with all of you. What are you thankful for?
Hello everyone, I am Sharima Johnson, the mother of Brian Tyler Jr. I'm just so thankful that this family have always welcomed me with open arms. I'm glad that Yanni want to take me along with her and her journey that will be beneficial to her nephew as well. So I just want to thank you, Yanni. I love you, always loved you. You're my little big sister, so inspiring. And I'm so happy you're a part of my life.
Yes, I love you. Yes.
Don't all jump up at once. I can't call him Zania. Zania spoke like 5 times already.
So I'm grateful for everybody. I love all y'all, my family, and my parents for bringing me up how they did, work hard for what I want. So that way I would have to ask people to get it. So just thank you for that.
Yes, come on, Kai.
My brother, watching them throughout life to help me move forward.
Yes, that's Michelle's husband.
Yes, but Zania paid him to say that too. Okay. No, just kidding. It could be one word.
I can say something.
Yes, one word.
I am so thankful. I have 2 other brothers here. I have 3 brothers left out of 7 of us. Kasi, Tyrone back there, and I have another brother, Terrence. And we're thankful that we were able to help raise Tremaine to be able to raise her children as the best that she could. So I'm so thankful for her being into my life.
Yes.
And also, I want to say happy birthday to my sister who will be 70, who would have been 70, December the 3rd. On whatever.
Tuesday.
70.
She would have been 70.
So I'm sure she will be down with us right now. Thankful for my sister in my life.
Yes.
We had so much fun together, partying and stuff like that. We had so much fun. Hanging with me.
Hanging with me.
Yeah. A lot of stories I can tell y'all right now, but I won't. But anyway.
Yeah. That's that Wildflower side.
Yeah.
That's book number 2, Under Wildflowers Co. Anyone else? I mean, seriously. Yes.
I'm grateful for just the one word family. I love family. I love trying to bring together, bring people in, and make them feel comfortable. And Yanni is one of our family for over 30-something years.
Yes.
Right? But Yanni's my girl, and I watched her grow with her big old pigtails, and stuff like that. And she's my girl, and I'm really proud of you. And you really inspired me. I have a lot to tell. I can't wait to start writing.
Yes.
I'm ready.
Yes. We will publish your books. I can't wait. Everybody writes a book.
Yes, you get a story. Anyone else grateful? Yes.
Well, I am grateful that I had the opportunity to celebrate my friend's birthday today. and that this was also an opportunity when I saw that she was going to be here for your event, and when I read the bio as a clinician, I said I needed to be in this space. I needed to hear what you were saying.
Yes.
And I'm just truly moved by what you were saying and what you're doing. And it touched my heart because I'm hearing 80s and 90s babies, but we have to also look at today's babies.
Yes.
Our babies today, and I work in the development system, alternative schools, and I work in the privileged school system, and I also have my own private practice where I work with adults as well. So I see the gamut of trauma, and our babies today are so unfazed by trauma. When they talk to me about different things, like, oh, did you see it on the news? And when I look and see it on the news, I'm shocked. And they're like, oh, that's my auntie. Yeah, she died. And I'm just like, well, how do you know about that? Well, I guess I haven't seen it yet. And it just, it's how our children are just barely coping. How they're barely coping. And it's because their parents are barely coping. And that they're not having that dialogue and that conversation. And I think that this generation their parents are electronics. Nobody goes outside anymore. Nobody has fresh air anymore. It's not, did you see it on YouTube? Did you see it on IG? Did you see it? What about the regular conversation? What about the family time dinners? I wish we could go back to that, or this generation could go back to that, because the way that I'm able to connect to families and children and hear their stories and be real with them and be a platform and be able to be vocal for them. And I think that it helps, of course, that I'm black, and a female. And you have to speak the language. Yeah. You have to speak the language. You can't come from the DSM-5. No, I'm coming to this little talk from Southwest Philly, like, let me talk to you. Let me find out how I can help you. I need to know, let's do this genogram. Let me find out who's your grandmother, who do you identify as your parents? It's so important to be able to understand the whole person, understand them, so we can reach the children, to be able to reach their families. And when I do that, when I'm able to be successful in that, and able to, because I do, I'm looking forward to this. When I go back and I get flowers from family members, or when I've gone to weddings, I've gone to funerals, I've gone to proms. I've been in situations where people thought that they were like, I'm holding a limo for you. I want you to come to my prom. Well, I'm like, I don't do this. I'm sorry. They're like, we thought you was going to record from us the whole time. I said, you know what? Then I did my job. I did my job. Thank you. Yeah. And I look forward to going on this journey with you. And I love writing, so I'm just looking forward to doing it in this method.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So if I don't have any more volunteers, okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim. I am your mom and love sister.
Yes.
And I'm also an early childhood educator, and I want to piggyback off of what you stated. But we have to be real. We're in the church and we're preaching to the choir. So there is a disconnect with this generation and their parents with their ancestors. Yeah. They don't know the struggle. The struggle is lost. But it takes us to bring that message. So I'm grateful that you bring this platform and you're bringing, the movement. But how do we penetrate the people that's not in this room? Because aside from Juneteenth and Christmas and, Kwanzaa, when do they hear about their history? If it's not being taught in schools. And I have a youth organization, and I was asking the children about history, our story. And most of the children couldn't answer, but I'm teaching it to my 3 and 4-year-olds. And my 3 and 4-year-olds are running circles around 12th graders and 11th graders. And they're looking at me like, we don't need to know that. But they do. So how do we start to penetrate this new generation at a younger age where we can be preaching to everyone and not just the people in this room? So I think that needs to be the task. How do we get the message to all of these households? Because to be honest, we're losing.
Yeah.
We're losing. I mean, but there is hope, but we're losing. So I'm grateful that we're all in this room and we all have the same minds and like-minded people. Right. But we got to get to this generation.
Right.
I just want to piggyback off of that because we do have a lot of younger generation that is a detachment. I think that the purpose of us all being in this room today is to be the light and to connect with those that we can. And that's the first step. So to get out there and your story, your testimony might help another younger person that's going through something similar. So it's a hard fight, but it can be done.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey there, Whitney, Johnny's my sister. Hey, first of all, God, we're talking about what we're grateful for. I'm grateful for liberation.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the liberating work that you've done. You liberated yourself, you liberated your mother, and thus you liberate so many others. There was a little trick we took, and I'm not thanking you for your transparency. I thank you for your honesty. I thank you for your wisdom. I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your compassion. I thank you for your kindness. I thank you for this gift that you've done, in the work that you've done, in your bravery, and your courage to confront those, even the darkest corners, to find light into a movement. And thus, as you give light, you help grow these wildflowers. So, thank you.
So I'm going to have all of us stand. Yanni is going to give us a gratitude meditation exercise. I am grateful for life, connections, and Yanni, who's an advocate. She's an advocate. She's our champion. Who's bringing us together. So let's close. She talked about reflections, but she also talked about a very important exercise.
Yes.
So before we mingle, let's...
Yes. Everybody close your eyes, please. All right, so this is a gratitude meditation exercise, and so I want you to start by just taking a few deep breaths in. Exhale. Another deep breath in. You're going to center yourself. Exhale. And I want you to think of someone or something you are deeply grateful for. It could be an ancestor. It could be a loved one. It could be a friend or a cherished memory. And as you focus on this person or thing, allow yourself to experience the feelings of gratitude and appreciation. Notice any sensations in your body, such as warmth, chills, openness, lightness. And now I want you to silently, in your mind, repeat a phrase of expressing gratitude towards the person or the thing. You can say, thank you for being a part of my life. If you wish to say it out loud, you can. You can say, I am grateful for the love and support you provide. Your presence brings me joy and happiness. Whatever your affirmation is to yourself, just repeat it in your mind, allowing this to resonate deeply within you. And stay in this state of gratitude for a moment. And feel that energy for a moment. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Another deep breath in. Exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and release and bask in that moment of gratitude. I I am so full and so grateful for the energy in this room. I'm so grateful for the healing that transpired in this room. So we are going to celebrate today. Thank y'all family for being here. So we're going to celebrate for the rest of this time. I will sign your books and we can have our conversations and keep the party going. But thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to do this work and I'm so excited to partner with you and to explore your own story so that we can publish and create generational wealth together. Ashe? Ashe. All right.